On the Rebel's Edge. Bang. Actually, I do have the clapper over here, Pete.
He's a traveling man. All right, Rebel's Edge time, baby.
Rebel's Edge, December 13th, 2023. Thanks for joining us. He is Pete Najarian. I am Jon Najarian, and Jared is Jared Najarian. He's handling all of
our brother.
Jared's like, what the hell?
He's got more hair than the both of us together.
Yeah. And that's just counting his back.
All right, we need to start the macro minute.
Yeah, we're getting back into the macro minutes and so forth. We always start off, folks, with the macro minute, and then we hit fantastic futures, 4 stocks that we're watching and trading, and then we'll cover a little sports for you, along with some social media posts that are pretty darn entertaining. So, without further ado, that's a French word, Pete, adieu. Let's get started with the macro minute, and I'm going to say it's Jay Powell and the Fed's last meeting of 2023, and there is almost a 100% certainty that he's going to do the following: stay on the pause, talk about how he's not done, and then ask Janet Yellen for some sort of a Christmas reach around or something.
What? I don't think he's doing the last one, but I will say this. So presently, you look at that CME tool, right, John, and it's at 98+%. It's been there. It's been locked in there. That's what's going to happen. If not, then all hell breaks loose. But I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's also interesting, as you were just talking about and alluding to, actually, with Jay Powell, because when he gets up there to speak, that's what really matters, right? And the question and answer and all the rest of that. And I think what he said already last week, and he'll probably have to repeat it again because that's the way reporters are, but he said last week, he goes, it would be premature for you guys to say that we're done hiking rates. So it's interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to, but he had that out there. By the way, I took a quick look, John. January 31st, which is the next meeting, 92.2% that they're going to pause again. So I think these pauses definitely are going to continue for a little while longer, and they probably should, based upon what we're seeing right now and what's going on in terms of the economy.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as always, folks, that we've already corrected 90 basis points, meaning we've gone from a little over 5.05% in the 10-year back down to 4.2, so call it 90 bips. That's a pretty big move without the Fed doing anything but pausing. All right. Fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
Mortgage refinance demand jumps almost 20%, Pete, after hitting the lowest level for mortgages since July. Now, that's good news, and it's reflected by both markets and, of course, the 10-year, even though, of course, most people are probably talking about 30 years. What do you have for futures, Pete?
John, I was looking at it. We always pull out food and energy, and I've been here before. I'm going to go here one more time, and I'm going to talk about sugar. And I think the reason that it's so interesting to me is you go back to late November, John, price of sugar was $28. You look at it right now, it's trading $22. I'll also point out this is the lowest level since June of this past year. So interesting to see the way that's been moving around. It's just another reflection of what's going on in the economy right now and some of the things, some of the reads that we've got. And if you leave in food and energy, it's a different story than it was not too terribly long ago. But there are still issues out there, and I think the Fed is going to address those, and I'm sure all the questions will be about a variety of things, primarily probably energy prices, which have dropped. But you're also got to look at what's going on from a housing perspective as well. So a lot of different storylines I think will come out of this. It should be a pretty volatile afternoon, I would expect.
Sure could be, even though, like you say, he's been the most transparent Fed official in forever. Yeah. And we know because of that he's going to give that first part of the speech. It's a pause. Second part, we're not done yet. And then the third part, whatever he wants for Christmas. All right, Pete, let's talk about Pfizer, because Mr. Pfizer, and I, in that case, would mean Travis Kelce, according to Aaron Rodgers. But the other Pfizer, the drug company that made the COVID vaccine, they got a big slump going on. People aren't going in for the vaccine shots. And thus, Pete, this year, this is going to be hard to believe, folks, but they have lost $143 billion in market cap. They just gave us a revenue forecast that predicts a further slump in sales. This is not a good time to be a Pfizer shareholder, is it?
It's awful. And everything about what they gave from guidance and everything else, John, was terrible. And I think if you take a look at what are the companies out there, the pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, however you want to categorize it, but those that decided, you know what, we're kind of an all-in company going towards this whole vaccine world, right? And specifically the ones that we've just had to go through over the last few years. That has been hurting them. Take a look at Moderna. Take a look at Novavax. Take a look at Pfizer. And Pfizer specifically, just absolutely getting cranked, John. I mean, this stock is a 52-week lows. It hit down towards $51, went all the way to $26. I mean, this is a butt kicking they're taking right now, and it's pretty interesting to watch how this is playing out. Now, they also trying to defend themselves a little bit. They've had to go out there and spend $43 billion on another company that has more on the world of cancer exposure. But still, that's a big check to write, and they've got to get themselves fixed, and they are trying to do something, obviously, with that. But I got to tell you something, John. I think there's a whole heck of a lot of better companies out there right now that I would be selecting in that world of pharma biotech over Pfizer, even at these levels. I think Pfizer's got issues.
Well, like we said, the shareholders certainly have issues, and $143 billion in market cap slip. That's more than, I guess, just a slip. That's a fall on your face. All right, let's talk about AMB, Pete. These guys, 4% increase in revenue for Q4. They're over $2.1 billion in revenue, and net income, the net that fell to the bottom line, up 29%. No wonder shares are screaming to the upside, double digits.
Yeah, ABM actually, John, but up 14%. And
ABM,
a huge run to the upside, 52-week highs, over 51. I mean, this is almost the exact opposite of Pfizer, right, in terms of the movement of the stock and sort of the news of the stock. And they've had a strong guidance for 2024, looking at earnings that are somewhere north of $3, 320, 340, somewhere in that range. Everything that they talked about was good. And it's positive. And that's why this stock's at 52-week highs. It's why it's up 14% today. But there isn't anything that I could pull out of this, John, that looked negative right now. So despite the fact that it's hitting 52-week highs doesn't mean it's done. And it's a company that I think has room still to the upside based upon what they're telling us and on what they're telling us about 2024.
Very true, Pete. And I'd say right now, a pretty good space to be in, obviously. Yep. Let's talk about PLAB, Pete, which is Photronics. These guys, as you might imagine, have something to do with either photographs or some way that you express video images. And you would be right if you thought that, because basically flat panel displays are part of what they do. So these guys had announced some pretty fabulous news. Stocks up over 16%. Revenue was up 8.2%. And they guided very strong on the future look for the company, Pete. And their CEO was just effusive in his praise after sixth consecutive year of record revenue. That's pretty nice.
I was going to say that is the thing that's just absolutely astounding. I mean, we don't see anybody doing that. There's always some kind of a pause or something, or maybe even a little bit of a slip up or whatever it might be. Not the case here. Matter of fact, the record revenue for 2023, absolutely impressive. As you said, the consecutive of this, there is a little bit of a short here, John. I'm not going to call it a huge short squeeze, but there is something to be there, because I think that's probably adding to it. There's about a 3 or 4% short interest here as well. You look at this company and the free cash flow, just about everything strong. Their strategic, positioning that they've got. This is a company that I think everybody ought to take a look at because they aren't done. They're not done impressing us. There's still room to the upside, and it trades very much in a very inexpensive way when you look at the PE right now. So I look at this company and say, you know what? They can't seem to be anything wrong with what we're seeing so far. Really impressive reporting, and I think it's not done.
And the CEO, Pete, when he said, hey, we're celebrating this 6th consecutive revenue growth quarter, everybody else in his industry is not in the same boat. They are the only one that is seeing this kind of growth, which tells you a lot about how well they do their job, I guess. Mm-hmm. All right, Vertex Pharmaceutical, also up almost double digits now. They have a pain treatment that is going through phase trials, Pete, and it's for people with painful diabetic peripheral neuropathy. Try to say that one 3 times fast. But they are treating people with that severe pain and finding that indeed this treatment is working pretty dang well, and that's why they're up almost just that far from a double-digit gain today.
Jon, this is a company that I kick myself every time I don't get involved with this company and buy some shares or get some sort of an option position on or whatever. And the reason I say that is it's hitting 52-week highs today, 392. It's establishing another level. And then when you look, they still have an incredible pipeline in front of them. They have a lot of different therapies and so forth that have been approved. They are doing just about everything right. Jon, how about this? Free cash flow, $4 billion. On top of that, how about when you look at what cash they've got versus what their debt is? Well, that's at $11 billion on the positive side. There isn't a flaw when you look at them right now. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. They've got this deep pipeline. I think it's impressive, this pain treatment they've got. I just don't know why I haven't really woken up yet and gotten myself involved here. It's something I got to start looking at a little bit closer because it still trades at a PE of 22. So when you look at this thing, you say, well, they've got cash. They don't really have debt relative to speaking of what their cash position is. And they just continue to just build upon that. And they just keep pumping out all these different drugs and therapies and everything else. Absolutely impressive. One of the best earnings I have ever seen. This is absolutely impressive. But it's not just about earnings. This is a company that just keeps on bringing somebody else. Phase 2, 1, 2, 3, let's get it out to the public. And that's what's killing it right now for them.
Absolutely. And I love that that this is another record high for the stock too, Pete. So it's not a stock that got ahead of itself. It's a stock that, like you say, it makes a run, and then I guess people take profits, get out or whatever, and then it makes another run, and then another run. And this is one of those runs right now. All right, let's talk about sports, Pete. But before we dive in, let's give the people what they want. Let's talk about this very interesting clip that we grabbed from Dr. Locks, MD. And Dr. Locks is a guy that more times than not, Pete, he's talking about not just sports locks, but he loves betting the over-unders on these games. So he is totally into what happens in the final few minutes of the game because in so many games, things change. Yeah. It looks like you're about to win. You gave 14, you're going to win, and all of a sudden it gets wiped out. So let's watch and comment.
Dolphins, what the fuck happened? I want to know. 20 to 13, 5:28 on the clock. This game is over.
It's over.
It's over. Dolphins got it. They're at home.
Look at these Dolphins in the end zone. I was at this game, Pete.
They deserve to lose just because of that stupid stunt.
Look at the Dolphins clowning. Absolutely clowning the Titans. They're doing tricks on it in the end zone, doing splits on Will Levis's head. A literal GTA strip club twerk session. Not to mention this shit. 14-point favorites. Down 14. Miami.
Great,
that guy, Mr. Locke or whatever, Dr. Locks rather, .md. He is the best, Pete. Gavin.mchugh.
That's phenomenal.
And he wears his heart on his sleeve for all these bets. Sometimes he gets them right. Like he said, I've got a lock. This is a stone pipe lock. And then sometimes it doesn't work out so well. And then he just wonders what the hell is happening. He was wondering on the Army-Navy game too, Pete.
Yeah.
That was a good one this weekend where he said, how the hell does this happen?
Well, this is a good segue, though, John, into where I wanted to go, because I wanted to go and talk about some of the quarterbacks in 2023 and how these GMs, wow, do any of them even deserve a paycheck when you really look at it, John? And here's why I say that. So who was the number one pick in the draft last year? Well, it was Bryce Young. Now, you can put that on the owner, which we do. But nonetheless, Bryce Young, you know what he's done this year? He's got 9 touchdowns, got 9 interceptions, got 48 sacks. None of those numbers are very good, right? So you look at that breakdown, you say, well, you know what? Maybe the problem starts with the offensive line. Clearly it does, because when you get that many sacks, you've got a problem. That kid, if he can do anything, Bryce Young, he can scramble around. He's athletic. So clearly, when he's going back, he is absolutely a target, because they are going through that offensive line like you would not believe. Now, we see him. We see all these others. You've got Richardson. Yes, I know he got hurt. You've got all these other guys over the last couple of years, and these GMs just can't get it right. So I wanted to point out how bad they really are, John. So the clip you just had on there was the Miami game against who? The Tennessee Titans. Who's the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans? Well, it's not who was starting out the year. It's Will Levis, who slipped in the draft. He was predicted to be somewhere top 10, top 20, top 30, for sure in the first round. It didn't happen. So he goes all the way to the second round. He and his girlfriend or whatever were sitting there for the entire night one on Thursday during the draft, and did not hear his name called, right? So all he's done, John, is 60% completion. He's got 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he had that monster week this past week against the Miami Dolphins. So that's number one. Here's another one for you. Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. This kid is a free agent, John, okay? Free agent. Now, he came out a couple years ago, but a free agent out of Illinois. I've seen the kid play in person. 3 straight wins so far since his opportunity got there with the New York Giants. His percentage is about 70%. He's got 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the last 3 wins. The Giants are actually probably somewhere involved in the possibility of the playoffs, right? A team that was getting flushed, and now all of a sudden they're there. And I got one more for you. Jake Browning. Now, you don't know his name. Nobody knows who he is. They don't know where the hell he played. The kid actually was a superstar in college. He played at the University of Washington a couple years ago, right? Heck of a player. He had, at one point in time, he had one of the most decorated quarterbacks ever in Pac-12 history, but nobody ever remembers him, and he kind of got passed over, didn't get drafted. He was on the Vikings for a little while on their practice squad and bounced around. Well, now he's sitting out there, John, with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's got a completion percentage close to 80%, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in 3 starts. And he put up some big numbers recently in the beating up on Indianapolis, 34-14. They beat Jacksonville in overtime. So this kid is doing what he needs to do to make sure Cincinnati is still somewhere relevant. And it makes it very, very interesting, because he's probably more active right now than the starter that he had to replace. So Joe Burrow's probably going, hey, wait a minute. Although Joe's contract's going to keep him there for a really long time and a lot of money. So I don't think Joe's worried that much. But Browning's looking pretty good, John. So what is it? Where do they make their mistakes? Where do these GMs, what are they doing when they are analyzing these quarterbacks? We've got all these guys go in the first round, and you could look at the Jets, you could look at the Giants, you could go up to New England, you could go through all these quarterbacks that have been drafted high. They stink. And yet these other guys manage to get in there, and they seem like they're pretty good. What in the hell's going on?
Well, like you said, Mac Jones up in that's his name, right, Pete? Mac.
Yep.
Up in New England. Terrible season.
Yeah.
The quarterback for the Giants, terrible season until Tommy gets in and saves the franchise practically because he's already thrown 8 touchdowns in 3 games, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he's athletic. He moves around in the pocket and things like that. He's a good-sized kid. He's 6'2" and, looks more like, a prototypical NFL quarterback than does Bryce Young. And, Bryce is great, but he's skinny, he's small, he's 5'10" or something like that, Pete. Mm-hmm. And we know that every once in a while there's a breakout Doug Flutie or, you get somebody who is undersized like Russell Wilson. But this kid's, like I say, about the right size. Many schools want a guy that's 6'4" or 5 instead, but most of them can't move as well as Tommy and some of these other guys move. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it all goes back to opportunity. The Giants have a pretty decent team, as it turns out, if you put a quarterback back there. Green Bay was doing pretty well and looking like they were going to try to make a run into the playoffs. And now with this loss, it's, that much tougher. But at least they got a little help from the Chicago Bears because they knocked off the Lions in the same division.
Yeah. Well, and DeVito lives at home, John. His mother still does his laundry. I mean, kid lives over there in New Jersey. He played at one of those monster high schools that everybody goes and recruits because everybody who goes there is a superstar and everything. And it's just kind of a classic story all the way around. All right, lastly, we're getting to bowl season, John. And what do I mean by that? Well, on Saturday, here's the running of the bowls, So the Myrtle Beach Bowl. My question's going to be at the end. Which one are you looking forward to have most? You've got the Celebration Bowl, the New Orleans Bowl. That might not be bad, actually. The Cure Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl, the LA Bowl, the Independence Bowl. So what do you think, John? When you go through it, the LA Bowl actually has teams that are kind of interesting, maybe. You got UCLA going against Boise State. So that could be sort of interesting, I think. Jerry Kill, an old coach at the University of Minnesota, is at New Mexico State, had a monster year. They're playing against Fresno State. All these bowls are just Saturday. And then they just start winding and going, and it never stops, John, until we get to the national championship. But of the bowls, is there any one that sticks out? And I'm going to give you a hint. Is there any bowl here that sticks out at all for you that you really like the looks of right now?
There is. And I know you're wearing your Cal Bears stuff in honor of our dad and our brother Paul. But yeah, Cal versus and me. Cal versus Texas Tech, Pete, in the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Cal finished out the season like a house of fire, Pete. Took down Stanford, took down UCLA. And that UCLA team put the beating on USC. Mm-hmm. So, I thought that was a pretty interesting finish for Cal. And I know it's in Shreveport. I know you played in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport.
Yeah.
And I don't wish Shreveport on too many people. But I'm sure it's a fine place, Pete. I'm sure it's a fine place.
It's fun, John. It's a great little city, actually. It's a hidden gem that people don't. And I'm not kidding when I say that was a fun bowl game. I had friends who drove up from Texas, who flew down from Minnesota, who flew out from California, all to come to the Independence Bowl. And, you kind of go there going, let's be honest. I mean, what are we going to do here? It was great. They were so hospitable. It was fun. John, on that game for us, here's why it was really fun. So we played Clemson, and we beat them. And they had won the national title not long before that. But so we beat Clemson. Now, Clemson had to have lights out every single night before the bowl game at 11. You know when we had to have our lights out? Never. Because Lou Holtz had taken off to go to Notre Dame to take that head coaching job. We had a guy named John Gutekunst who took over, and he said, look, we're going to have fun at this bowl game, boys, and we're still going to win. And we did. So there was a lot of partying, a lot of good times, a lot of fun. And you know what? We still won the game. So it was just like, the frosting on top of the cake. It was phenomenal.
The cherry on top. Yep, it was. It was great that you guys did that, Pete, and that you were out all night and still did that.
Brutal.
And I'm guessing that this guy might know a thing or two about partying. The LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. That is the name of the freaking bowl, folks. Just like we told you the other day about the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, this is the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk at SoFi Stadium, Boise State versus UCLA, like Pete said. I don't know what this Isleta, New Mexico Bowl is, Pete. I don't know what Isleta is. Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl. I half think somebody is slapping these names on the beginning of these titles just to screw with us, Pete. I mean, avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl.
John, there's 41 bowl games. That means you need to have 82 teams. And I will say this, my Golden Gophers got in with a 5-7 record.
It used to be you had to have 6 wins, wasn't it?
Used to be the rule, but you know what? To fill in, because they started running out of schools, to fill in, they had to go to academics, and the academics at the University of Minnesota are so strong that they actually got into their bowl game. So it's a win-win.
Well, and we'll recap more of these next week, folks. But Monday, we've got the famous Toastery Bowl between Old Dominion, which I always thought was a country band, Pete, and Western Kentucky. And then we've got Tuesday, the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. They don't even know what this thing is. Scooters Coffee?
John, Scooters Coffee is the best. I've been there. It's like the old days of Photomat when you drive up and just drop your camera, your film in there. This is the same thing, except for it's with coffee. You drive up, there's a guy sitting in this little booth. He goes, "Hey, what do you want?" You go, "I want a coffee." Boom, boom, you're gone. Scooters is the best, man.
Scooters says, "Get the hell out of here now." Well, we're going to get the heck out of here, folks. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like any information about some of the stocks we talked about, go to marketrebellion.com/get started. That's marketrebellion.com/get started. And you can be trading just like Pete and me. Thank you. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m.